Among the three major operating systems that dominate the market, Linux is the least popular of the three. With only 1.93% of computer users worldwide using this operating system, it certainly won't be replacing Windows as a norm for operating systems on computers anytime soon. However, we're not here to talk about why you shouldn't use Linux, but rather, we're here to surprise you just how useful Linux is compared to its two largest competing operating systems, Windows and macOS. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 2 of our Reasons to Buy trilogy. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Linux, Gboard's favorite operating system. Before we begin though, I'd like to make a disclaimer that while it is easy to just write Linux off as a superior OS like the next elitist would, it is important for you as a viewer to watch and understand every point mentioned in this video before drawing a conclusion, because most of it is not as simple as it seems. Also, I would like to take a moment to remind you viewers to subscribe to our channel. Subscribing to a small channel like us goes a long way in helping us make more videos like this in the future, and it's completely free. Thank you. Alright, let's start this video off with the lowest hanging fruit. It's free. Yes, legally free. Users are free to download and install any Linux distro at no cost, no phishing links, no viruses, and no legal troubles. While it is free to install an unactivated version of Windows on your computer, it comes with its own set of limitations and problems that deserves its own discussion video. On the other hand, we have macOS, which is only available as a proprietary software on Apple computers. If you're building your own computer, maybe consider installing a Linux distro and use that $139 on better hardware that you would otherwise spend on a Windows license. The next reason for you to consider Linux is its performance. Compared to its two major alternatives, Linux is the least bloated, which makes it more optimized for performance. With the countless number of Linux distros available, users are free to choose whether they want the most bare-bone and lightweighted operating systems like Puppy Linux, or if they are willing to sacrifice a bit of performance for an OS with a convenient UI like Ubuntu. Well, that doesn't make any sense. How could a free and open source operating system like Linux offer superior performance compared to proprietary software like Windows and macOS, where there are thousands of developers paid to maintain and develop this operating system full time? Obviously, it's not that simple. You see, making an operating system bare-boned and bloat-free can work as kind of like a double-edged sword, you'd say. Most Linux distros are developed with the assumption that their users are familiar with computers. In most cases, users have to go through a lot of process if they want to make the computers fully functional with Linux, whereas Windows and macOS handles all of those processes out of the box, making the installation process much more seamless and convenient for users. In favor of making the OS easy to use, however, Microsoft and Apple would have to ensure that their OS is capable of working with most of the users' hardware by including more software in the systems, which results in bloat. Think about it this way. In order to support more kinds of hardware, those companies would have to include many kinds of software that might be crucial for one group of users to get the OS running, but not so much for another group of users. If you have an aging computer sitting at the back of your room, maybe consider resurrecting it by installing one of the aforementioned Linux distros, if Windows 10 is too demanding for that computer. This brings me to our next reason to consider Linux over other operating systems. If you've watched our 5 reasons to buy Windows video, you'll know that one of the reasons most companies choose to have Windows installed on their computers is that it is a perfect balance between flexibility and ease of use. While that is true for most companies, it's a different story when it comes to the computing industry. Most companies in the computing industry, especially those looking to host their own servers, generally prefer Linux over the rest due to its low resource demands. This is because most companies that host their own servers have hundreds or maybe thousands of server computers running around the clock. With workload like that, most large companies end up with electric bills higher than what most people make in a year. There are many ways to reduce power consumption on server computers, and having an optimized operating system is one of them. Although the fancy GUI and the bloatware that comes with Windows wouldn't take up much resources to make a difference on our household power bills, it's a completely different story for that of a server. If the servers were installed with Windows, the servers would have to be running at a slightly higher clock rate at all times just to keep the OS running with all of its bloat. With Linux, however, developers can choose to only have the command line interface installed on the OS and reserve the rest of its resources for whatever program they need to run. Another advantage that Linux has over Windows and macOS is the security. This isn't to say that Windows and Mac OS has no security. In fact, it's quite the opposite. What I'm trying to say is that there's plenty of factor that contributes to the Linux security, making it generally more secure to common attacks nowadays. With Windows being the most common OS installed on each computers now, it isn't surprising to see that hackers would shift their attention to finding exploitable vulnerabilities in Windows over Linux, hence making Linux attacks much less common than Windows. The other reason is the way Linux works as an OS. Unlike in Windows and Mac OS, Linux users have absolute control over the computers. As long as they have root permissions, users are free to delete whichever files they like on Linux, including those that are vital for the OS to function. Windows and Mac OS, however, don't trust their users enough to grant them that choice and will block any attempts to delete any files that the system deems necessary. Viruses can take advantage of that and disguise itself as an important system file, making it near impossible for users to remove those viruses from their systems once they're infected. This isn't a problem that Windows and macOS can easily fix though, because remember when I said that Windows and macOS tries their best to reach out to a wider range of users compared to Linux? Well, Microsoft and Apple would have to increase the security of their operating systems through other means, as granting their users root permission would mean that rookie users are more likely to damage the OS by accidentally deleting vital files. If you enjoy having the ability to customize your OS's appearance, Linux is also the way to go. We're not just talking about simply having the ability to choose between light and dark mode or to change your background image. We're talking about customization down to the very core. From different taskbar designs, different login animations to different looking app drawers. There's an endless number of distros for users to choose from in Linux, none of which are identical to one another. Don't like the Pantheon desktop environment that comes with Arch Linux? No problem, you can choose to install other desktop environments like GNOME, or install a completely different distro altogether. Most Windows or macOS users are stuck with their default user interface without the help of third-party applications that will usually sacrifice a bit of performance. And that concludes today's videos on top 5 reasons to install Linux. We hope that you've learned something about Linux and why you should consider installing it on your computer. If you feel like this video has been a great eye-opener, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're interested in seeing more content like this. That's all for now. We hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.